just wrapping up lessons for the day, something that I've been working on with a student a lot, a bunch of students, and it's amazing how this is not as easy as it sounds when I explain it, okay? But let's just say we break down the 12-bar blues. You know, you've got a measure on, a measure off, a measure on, a measure off, the whole way through the 12-bar blues. What I'm trying to get these students to do is to navigate their solos. And the reason I'm using the 12-bar blues is just because it's very easy to follow, but to navigate their solos in a less random way, right? So what we kind of want to get away from is just those drifting, there's going nowhere, okay? So because that's where a lot of people are starting, and then they think that learning more scales, learning more modes, learning how to play that particular pentatonic all the way up and down the neck is going to help. It's actually going to make it worse. What we need to do is we need to train the rhythm muscle in that brain of yours to be able to play the same thing over and over and over. And I know that sounds way easier than it seems to be just in a lot of the students that I'm working with. Now these are, like, some of my students are teenagers, just starting to get into blues, just starting to get into rock solos, whatever it is. And some of these are older professional guitar players that have just been shredding their whole life, and not really getting into improv or kind of like making up their own solos. So the trick, honestly, is let's get away from trying to make the solo interesting, you know. And that's the first thing that I'll tell a student is, like, listen, we're going to do this drill. I don't want this to sound interesting, because whatever we think interesting is supposed to sound like is getting us away from what a concise solo actually is. Okay, so I have them do in the 12-bar blues either one measure on, one measure off, one measure on, one measure off, or I'll split it up, 2 measures on, 2 measures off. Now what that means is if we just have our, it's pause, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3, 4, pause, 2, 3. Now what I'm doing there is completely random. So the next part of this process is going to be, can you play the exact same thing twice? Okay, sounds easy. It's amazing how difficult that is for all of us to do. So I want it to be so boring because you're playing the same thing over and over. So if you have right, okay, perfect. Right, now what that's doing is it's really strengthening the repetition muscle. Now, what we do is when that becomes so strong, we start to move a little bit quicker, okay? So let's say we sort of up the tempo of the 12-bar, right? And now we're going to switch it. So now you're playing two back-to-backs the same way, and then switch it again. So this is 2, 3, 4, and then switch it. Now, what we're trying to do there is not allowing you to sort of memorize it before you play it for the first time, right? So now that muscle's starting to move a little quicker. We're able to just play the exact same thing right after without having to super internalize it. And it really what it is, it's just like learning a language. It's sort of, the teacher says it, then you say it. The teacher says it, then you say it. It's just repeating the same thing over and over and over. Now, that starts getting faster. Now the slight changes where you're saying, you know, one thing and then answering the question. So now we start getting into, okay, let's make slight changes here, right? So now we're sort of taking the same rhythm, right, and applying a different note structure. You know, one great thing that is also amazing to sort of apply to this is, can we build that tension, right? And our tension notes, if you guys know the pentatonic, right? The tension notes are, these are the home bass notes, I'm sorry, the root notes are here, and our tension notes are just, so that 5, right, on the bottom string, 8 on the bottom string, 8 on the second string, those are the 2 notes next to the root note. So you can build tension by getting close to the root note, but not actually hitting it. So now, if we sort of have this like rhythmic idea that we've built up so much, we can adapt the rhythm with other note choices. Now we can sort of establish this call and response. All right, so now these solos sort of start having a little bit to do with each other, right? We're sort of taking what we're playing and sort of creating a little bit of a paragraph, rather than, if we go back to, you know, the first few examples, or right, it's just too randomized. Okay, we're starting to get away from it. So that's why the strengthening, being able to play the same thing over and over and over and over, you know, faster and faster, we're sort of increasing our speed, and then being able to play back to back, you know, same thing twice, and then changing it right away, and then changing it again. So that, like I was saying before, the reason that we're sort of jumping and changing is because when you're playing that first lick, right, those 2 exactly the same. Once the second one is done, once the repeat is done, you have to jump into a new one, which now means that you haven't internalized this new lick yet. You know what I mean? Because it's just off the cuff from the last repeating lick, that you're not having that sort of pre-planned time, and that's how we start to make this a little bit better and a little bit faster, and work a little bit more to our advantage. That becomes increasingly important, because and starting to train your ear to hear it in some of your favorite solos, because the goal of all of this is to evolve it just in a way where whatever you just played, we're sort of playing off of it, we're playing off of it, and we're playing off of it. So it doesn't just have a stream of random licks and notes that don't have anything to do with each other. And that's not to say that a complete 180 change, you know, maybe you have a couple repetitions or very similar rhythmic ideas happening, and then there's a full, you know, 180, 90 degree, however you want to think of it, change. That still can be part of this, you know, that can still move. Well, if you can repeat, and you're getting really good at repeating, then you can completely change and then sort of go off and have that repeat. The reason is, not a lot of these solos are that repetitive and sort of boring, right? Because that will definitely get boring for us playing it and for the listener. But when we have a streamline of that may seem like just one long stream of nonsense notes, you know what I mean? But in there's a lot of repetition in similar dynamics and similar rhythmic structures. A couple call and responses in there. So now what we're able to do is take those smaller chunks, which is sort of like if you're learning a language, like asking where the bathroom is, you know, asking how someone's doing, and then we're able to string them together non-stop, you know what I mean? Because we're building it up from that very basic standpoint of having a very slow back and forth conversation, you know, and then kind of building it up more and more and more and more. And so this is a great exercise to start using your ear and hearing what used to say. And I remember doing this. Was kind of fun, re-listening to solos that I thought I knew inside and out, you know, but like kind of listening to your favorite solos and your favorite guitar players and hearing how they're actually doing this. And it's not as random. And the only reason that I keep using the word random is because that's what we all think when we grab the guitar, is that it's just... You know what I mean? And there's so much more to it. So just try all of that. Leave a comment if you guys want some exercises for that. But just wrapping up my day lessons, wanted to share.